Welcome to the Alaska Weather Show. I'm meteorologist Peter Chan on this Thursday, May 13th, 2021. And we're going to have the latest information as it pertains to the river breakup, plus a special edition of the River Watch on this Thursday. And as a reminder, if you needed a recorded forecast, you can call 1-800-472-0391. Or better yet, go online to weather.gov/Alaska if you have that ability, because there's plenty of information to find there. Our program change notice, a reminder for our friends that view us each evening on KTOO 360 TV. Starting next Thursday, May 20th, the Alaska Weather TV show will air at 6:30 p.m. instead of 7:30. That'll be each day after that point, so just remember, an hour earlier instead of 7:30, we're going to be airing at 6:30 on KTOO 360 TV. Well, the river breakup map, there are a couple of things of significance. A ice jam developed on the Buckland River on the west side of the state there, and as a result, the flooding was reported early today. With 5 feet of water covering the village road there in Buckland, and the locals say it's some of the worst flooding they've seen since 1978. So hopefully that situation, that ice jam, will begin to break up and alleviate the flooding concerns there along the village road. Another note, the other day we had an ice jam above Circle on the Yukon River, and that has finally given way overnight and allowed some of the water and ice to move through much better now. However, those of you downstream from Circle, keep an eye on river levels, because we do expect those river levels to be higher with that added water and ice moving on through the system. But otherwise, we continue to have a pretty gradual release of the ice and the water levels, so that's good news. At least right now, we're not anticipating any major flooding or widespread flooding, so we'll continue to watch the river breakup unfold here as we work through the end of the month of May. And something we always ask of you, we need your help. If you happen to be along one of those rivers or traveling, flying over one of them, we appreciate your spotter reports. Any pictures, videos, or something noteworthy to pass along, you may submit your reports and photos to nws.ar.aprfc@noaa.gov. And if you experience flooding or something more serious or unusual that you haven't seen before on the river, you can call 1-800-847-1739 to speak with one of our River Forecast Center forecasters, because they utilize your reports to help them make their decisions in the forecast and in the warning process. So looking at the satellite imagery from this Thursday early evening, we have an area of moisture that's pulled up into the southeast and south central areas, and that is associated with an area of low pressure. We're going to see more moisture right up through there Friday into Saturday. In fact, some areas of the southeast could pick up a half to 3/4 of an inch of rainfall, which is pretty good for this time of year. Farther north along the Arctic coast, we have areas of freezing fog and some patchy light snow or flurries along the north slope and the Arctic coast. And then back through the Aleutians and pushing into the southwest peninsula, there is a couple areas of low pressure and an occluded front that are kind of just pinwheeling northeastward. The main low is still back just north of the Aleutians, out over the south of Bering Sea, but another little area of low pressures kind of spin up and ride up toward Kodiak Island Friday as we head through the day on Friday. So again, one low pressure system working its way into the northern Gulf, another one riding up along the Pacific side of the southwest peninsula, and then another one sitting just north and south of the central and eastern Aleutians. And we do expect in interior areas, especially south of the Yukon River, the potential for additional scattered instability showers to pop up Friday into Saturday. And there's just enough instability this time of year. We start to get a little warmer temperatures. There could even be a rumble of thunder. So on the weather maps, Trough of low pressure lags there just south of the Yukon River across south central interior. There's that low lifting up north through the Gulf of Alaska, bringing more moisture up into the southeast. And then along the Arctic coast, areas of freezing fog. And then back toward the Aleutians, you see double barrel low pressure spinning up through there, bringing a variety of frontal systems to the north and east. Later tonight into early tomorrow morning, we'll see that low approaching just south of and southwest of Kodiak Island. And that's going to bring another surge of moisture on up into the southeast peninsula. Back toward the west, center of low pressure, broad area of low pressure there just north of the eastern and central Aleutians with a lot of low cloudiness, light fog and light rain around it. And on Friday, we expect that low pressure troughiness just lingering across the southern half of the state, creating some instability showers that will allow maybe even a rumble of thunder there up through the interior of the Yukon-Kuskokwim deltas, as well as in the southeast interior. Meanwhile, frontal system lifts northward toward the southeast coast, reinforcing areas of rain, and back toward the Aleutians. You can see that low really wrapped up there in the eastern Aleutians, and by Saturday, occluded front lifts up right along the south central and southeast coast, enhancing the rain, with area of low pressure lifting from just southwest of Kodiak Island on up toward off the Kenai coast, with areas of snow in the higher elevations and mountains, but valleys generally seeing some rain with perhaps a rumble of thunder in the mountains or north of the mountains there as you go between the Alaska Range and south of the Yukon River. So temperatures for lows tonight, lower 40s across the southeast and then back through the south central areas. Lows along the coast, mid-30s to near 40 degrees, and that's generally the case for everyone. High temperatures beneath the cloud cover, rain and fog in the southeast will stay in the upper 40s to near 50 Friday afternoon, but interior areas could be up near 60, Glen Allen, 61 Talkeetna, as warm as 65 at McGrath, Anchorage about 57, and then down along the coast, generally 40s to near 50 from the Kenai to Kodiak and the southwest peninsula. On Saturday morning, lows will be low mid-40s across the southeast, including Ketchikan on up toward Haines and Skagway. And then back across south central areas, lows upper 30s to around 40 degrees. On Saturday afternoon, temperatures across the southeast will generally be pretty uniform, around or just above 50 degrees. And back up through the interior of south central areas, 56 at Glen Allen and Talkeetna, 53 at Anchorage, and then driving down south, 40s along the Kenai coast and 48 there at Kodiak. Along the Arctic coast, lows will get down into the teens Friday morning, but remain generally above freezing through the Yukon Valley. High temperatures Friday afternoon will push up to as warm as 64 there at Galena and Tanana, and then as we see 65 there at McGrath. Low temperatures Saturday morning in the teens along the Arctic coast, and then generally above freezing along the Yukon River Valley. And high temperatures Saturday afternoon with a bit more cloud cover may be confined to the lower 60s there along the middle Yukon. And high temperatures along the Arctic coast, mid-20s to around 30 degrees, including the north slope. Finally, going through the southwest and along the Aleutian chain, Friday morning lows will generally be in the upper 30s to around 40 degrees, even coastal areas of the west and southwest, including the Kuskokwim and Yukon deltas. And then temperatures Friday afternoon will manage to get back up into the 60s as we get up the upper, mid and upper Kuskokwim and the Yukon valleys. Areas along the southwest peninsula will generally stay in the mid-40s for highs and lower 40s out along the Aleutian chain. Saturday morning, lows across the region will be in the mid-30s to lower 40s, and high temperatures Saturday afternoon will remain in the 40s along the immediate coast, but the interior rivers there, the Yukon again, could be in the 50s with a few 60-degree readings showing up. And a quick check of the temperature outlook for next week. We do expect temperatures to average above normal across the southwest, creeping up through the core of the Yukon Valley. That's for May 19th through the 23rd. And during that time frame, likely see some additional readings getting back up into the 60s. And then as we go, take a look at precipitation outlook for the 6 to 10 day period, May 19th through the 23rd. This time around, we're expecting precipitation to average a bit below normal. Generally, the south has been a little wetter with a little above normal precipitation, but it looks like we'll get a little break from that particular trend. So that does it there for your statewide weather.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
In our aviation weather segment, we'll now take a look for planning purposes, the flying weather for Friday through Saturday. Starting off Friday morning, we'll continue to see a broad area of IFR conditions at the Gulf of Alaska, north central areas of the southeast Panhandle and through Kodiak Island, as well as along the Brooks Range and Arctic coast, and then areas of the Bering Sea, including much of the central into the eastern Aleutians. And as we go through Friday afternoon, IFR conditions will persist up there along the Arctic coast, Prudhoe Bay, eastward. On through the southeast, we'll see IFR conditions across central and southern areas, the northern Gulf, Kodiak Island to off the southwest coast, along the Pacific side of the Alaska Peninsula, and the much of the Aleutian chain. And for Saturday morning, look for IFR conditions first up there along the Arctic coast and the north slope to about the Brooks Range. And then down through the south central coast through the southeast, IFR conditions are anticipated, extending westward across portions of the southwest, the Alaska Peninsula, particularly on the Pacific side, and throughout much of the Aleutians and much of the central and eastern Bering Sea. For Saturday afternoon, still IFR conditions along the Arctic coast, parts of the north slope, as well as south central areas and all of the southeast inner waterways. And then IFR conditions are anticipated to continue there along and off the west coast, and especially along the Alaska Peninsula Pacific side into the eastern Aleutians. Past conditions for Friday, Anaktuvuk starting out IFR, becoming VFR with more adverse conditions farther north that you fly. Adigan, the same thing, IFR becoming VFR by afternoon. Lake Clark will start out IFR, lifting to MVFR, and then Merrill look for MVFR with visual flight rules by afternoon. Rainy also MVFR becoming VFR, and for areas a little more north and to the east, we're looking for windy, as well as Isabel and Metasta passes, all seeing VFR conditions throughout the day on Friday. Tanita will also stay VFR, and it's looking like Portage should generally hold with MVFR conditions on Friday as that frontal system lifts gradually lifts northward, and then much of the southeast will be socked in with IFR conditions, including the north end there at Chilkoot and White Passes. Freezing levels will generally be above 4,000 feet for Friday across portions of the interior. More of an inversion situation where you'd have surface level freezing, but aloft at least. And then looking at the area along the southeast, there's below 2,000 feet in the interior there of Canada, but otherwise generally around 4,000 feet. And with the highest values 6,000 and 8,000 feet out from the Gulf of Alaska into the North Pacific. Icing potential between 6,000 and 4,000 feet across much of the southeast. Also another area from around Kodiak Island across the southwest peninsula. We're anticipating with that frontal system and area low pressure back through the Bering Sea. Icing potential between 8,000 and 15,000 feet. The upper level jet stream winds, a core of 125 knot winds situated there. Kind of just outside the boundary of the Gulf of Alaska, but from the southwest, turning inland over 100 knots there through Yakutat into the northern areas of the southeast. And then back through the Bering Sea, we see that low circulation sitting just north of the eastern Aleutians. As we drop down to 9,000 feet, it's better defined. See that low pressure circulation, backside of it, winds through the western Aleutians, 35 to 40 knots. South of the central Aleutians, northwest winds upwards to 55 knots. And as we round out through the southwest, winds will be southeasterly ahead of that occluded front, 30 to 40 knots. And in the southeast, southwest winds of 35 to 40 knots. Finally, at 3,000 feet, well-defined low-pressure circulation there just north of the eastern and central Aleutians. Strongest lower 3,000-foot winds over 50 knots in the North Pacific south of the Aleutians. And a quick check of turbulence. We do anticipate turbulence between the surface and 4,000 feet across the southwest peninsula, Kodiak Island, and then much of the central and eastern Aleutians between the surface and 3,000 feet. So that does it for your aviation weather, and as always, get the latest forecast and observations before heading out. And we wish you a great flight if you're heading out here this Friday or Saturday.
Mercury is tough to see at best of times, but with a sliver of moon and Mercury at its greatest elongation, maybe this week will be your chance, my little star buddies. Hit the skies just after sunset and look west toward the darkening sky. You should see bright Venus following the sun below the horizon here, and then right behind it is tiny little Mercury. Planets closer to the sun are easiest to see when furthest from the sun on their orbit from our perspective. This is called elongation, and you can spot it all week. The best part is if you hit the sky at the same time each night, you'll see the moon pass Venus, then Mercury, then Mars, and then Venus and Mars will switch places soon. You can keep an eye on all of this in the sky. What a time for stargazing. Get outside, enjoy the warming weather, and keep looking up.
Hi everyone, I'm Jessica Sano with the Alaska Pacific River Forecast Center, here to deliver your May 13th, 2021 Alaska Breakup Outlook. As of now, most of Alaska's major rivers are open or mostly open, but ice jams and flooding can and are still occurring. We encourage everyone to be flood ready and be aware of their local emergency plans. This is the most up-to-date information we have, but keep in mind, things are actively changing. There are three main components we use to evaluate breakup severity and timing. First, ice thickness and strength. Second, snowpack. Third and most important, spring weather patterns. Temperatures in late April and early May control snowmelt rate, thermal condition, and integrity of the ice, which helps us figure out which kind of breakup might occur and when. Our early May snowpack is melting, but the snow water equivalent, or the amount of meltwater coming out of a snowpack, is still right around average for this time of year. This tells us there is still potentially a lot of water that is going to be flowing into these major watersheds, and there is an increased risk of flooding due to snowmelt. Our 6 to 10 day forecast is showing air temperatures to be likely above normal around the state. And our 8 to 14 day temperature outlook is also showing temperatures likely to be above normal. As of this morning, the Yukon is a mix of some open water and ice, with mostly open headwaters. The Tanana, Koyukuk, Kuskokwim, Susitna, and Copper are mostly open, and all the northern rivers are still frozen. There is still an active flood watch for Circle, and a new flood warning was issued this morning on the Buckland River for Buckland. There are reports of about 1 to 3 feet of water in town and homes. Keep in mind that even when rivers are labeled mostly open or open, it is still possible for ice and debris to move through the river from upstream headwaters, so always use caution when navigating rivers. As breakup begins to wrap up, here's a summary of the major rivers that have begun to melt or have already melted, starting with the Kuskokwim. As of now, the Kuskokwim River, including the North and South Fork headwaters, are mostly open, and Stony River is completely open. Breakup dates were between April 23rd at Nikolai and May 5th at Napakiak. And only 2 notable ice jams occurred this season so far. One between Red Devil and Hanson's Creek on April 30th, and another on May 4th just below Aniak at Crow Village and Birch Crossing. Minor flooding did occur in the town of Aniak. The Copper River is mostly open. In this season, we saw 1 minor ice jam near Copper Center. No significant flooding was reported. The Susitna and tributaries are a mix of ice, some open and open. 1 ice jam was reported this season at Gold Creek. Again, no significant flooding was reported. The Tanana had 1 ice jam near Moose Creek Dam on April 28th and 1 in Fairbanks on the same day. Both jams were short-lived and caused no substantial flooding. Breakup occurred on April 30th when the tripod moved and stopped the clock for the Nenana Ice Classic. The Tanana is currently mostly open. And finally, the Yukon River still has a lot of ice in place, but breakup is occurring throughout the river. So far, there have been 2 ice jams, one upstream of Eagle on May 6th and another upstream of Circle, which began on May 9th at the confluence with the Nation River. The jam released last night. So far, there's been no reported flooding in Circle. There is another Riverwatch flight scheduled over the Middle Yukon this afternoon, and to see photos from the flight and other flights this season, visit weather.gov/aprfc/geophoto. As a reminder, the National Weather Service has 3 types of flood statements: flood warning, flood watch, and flood advisory. The flood warning tells you that a flood is on its way or already happening. In that case, you should grab your emergency kit, listen to local officials, and seek higher ground. A flood watch tells you to be prepared, have that emergency bag on hand and ready to go. We recommend you have enough food, water, and medication for yourself, family, and pets for at least 3 days, and be waiting for any alerts from local officials. A flood advisory just means to be aware. River conditions are actively changing. This is a great time to read and understand your local flood plan and get your emergency bag ready to go. To keep an eye on what's happening in your area the rest of our breakup season, visit our website at weather.gov/aprfc. And don't forget to follow us on Twitter at NWSAPRFC and Facebook, U.S. National Weather Service, Alaska. Finally, we still need you to submit river observations from your local area. Email us at nws.ar.aprfc@noaa.gov or give us a call at 907-266-5160 or 1-800-847-1739. And you can always submit an observation on our website. Thanks for tuning in.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
By land, by air, now by sea, it's the marine weather segment time, and looking at today's sea ice edge. The sea ice continues to break up there throughout the northern Bering and the Bering Strait, and as a result, we are going to see this trend continuing with the melting and some even open areas of ice where the water is opened up entirely there near St. Lawrence Island. Expect, though, with winds, northeasterly winds, there could still be some southward and westward drift of ice here the next couple of days, as low pressure will be passing well south of the region down along the eastern Aleutians and the tip of the southwest peninsula. But for Friday, marine weather forecast, the inner waterways of the southeast winds will be southeast to south, 15 to 20 knots, waves 3 to 4 feet. Along coastal areas of the Gulf, and approaching occluded front there, winds will be south-southeast around 15 to 20 knots and swells generally 6 feet. On Saturday, we'll see southeast to south winds continuing through the inner waterways with perhaps some higher gusts around Petersburg up to 35 knots and swells or waves 3 to 4 feet. Along coastal areas, winds trying to turn more southwest and west, 15 to 20 knots and swells around 6 or 7 feet. For south central areas, with low pressure out in the Gulf of Alaska, winds will initially be east-northeast, about 15 knots with 2-footers there in Prince William Sound. Off the Kenai and mouth of Cook Inlet, we are looking at easterly winds of 25 knots and swells of 7 to 9 feet. And then on Saturday, winds will be somewhat variable across the region. Northeasterly Prince William Sound, 2-footers. In the Cook Inlet, south to westerly winds, or at least trying to turn west as a frontal system approaches from the southwest. And off the Kenai there, waves may be upwards to 6 feet. And then as we go into Friday, across the southwest peninsula, Kodiak Island, we are looking for winds to start to turn around more back toward the south and southwest ahead of an occluded front, low pressure system that will be approaching from the southwest. Swells on the Pacific side, 8 to 10 feet, around 5 feet on the Bering side, and then as that area of low pressure approaches, there you can kind of see the circulation approaching Cold Bay and False Pass. Winds will be south ahead of it, 15 to 20 knots, and the North Pacific swells 10 feet, but on the Bering side, 2 to 4 feet with winds east to southeast, eventually turning around more to the north. And on Friday, look for the Aleutian chain to see area of low pressure near and just north of Atka and Nikolsky, and we're going to see that working its way east. So ahead of it, winds will be south-southwest, but then turning more to the west and northwest on the backside of the low. And as we go through Saturday, winds will turn more west to northwest, around 20 upwards to 30 knots, with swells of 13 to 15 feet on the Pacific side and generally 6 to 8 feet on the Bering side. And looking at the west coast, over the ice, winds out of the east-northeast 15 to 25 knots, open water 30 knots south of St. Matthew with 12-foot swells. And then on Saturday, more of a northerly component to the wind over the ice, and also heading out toward the open waters, and waves generally around 5 to 6 feet south of St. Matthew through St. Paul and St. George. And along the Arctic coast for Friday, winds will be out of the east at 10 to 20 knots. Again, still some areas of freezing fog and patchy flurries or light snow. And then down along the northwest coast, winds will try to turn a little more northerly, especially there, Kotzebue Sound. And as we go into Saturday, look for east-northeast winds along the Arctic coast, 10 to 15 knots, and around 15 to 20 knots from Cape Lisburne southward through St. Lawrence Island. Quick check of the weather maps. We are looking for, on Friday, that low pressure lifting up into the from off of Kodiak into the south central coast, lagging low pressure along the south central interior with the low just north there of the Aleutians beginning to fill in and head southeastward as we go through the day on Saturday. Included front bringing rain and some gusty winds at times there along the southeast coast. And just a quick reminder to close today. Starting May 20th, that's a week from now, Thursday, Alaska TV weather will air at 6:30 p.m. instead of 7:30 on those of you who watch through KTOO 360 TV. Have a good evening, and we'll be back again tomorrow.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.